Hello, everybody. My name is Dane Frederiksen. I am a B2B video expert on a mission to try and figure out how can we do more with video to help with AI search. And I'm joined today by Jessica Hennesey, who is a GEO expert. And what do we need to know else about you, Jessica?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm the founder of Resonate Online as well as BetterSites. BetterSites is a platform to help organizations um, improve their website so that their content appears on LLMs. So this is very, very topical.
Yeah, and so I always approach this as kind of extremely biased. Let's just acknowledge the bias. Look at all the video stuff. Like, I'm a video guy. I have an agenda here, right, to make video more valuable. But I really think that video is having a moment, and it really kind of comes into focus with AI, zero-click search. Shout out to uh, Spark Toro for coining that term, Amanda over there. Where the transcripts are getting cited by the LLMs. I think that's our overlap, you and I, about
Yeah.
like, what do we need to know now? Where do we sort of stand with that? Big question, how important is video for that right now?
So similar to you, I think video is very important. I think it is a fantastic way to get a message across, and it allows a more personal conversation with whomever the listener is. So I think with respect to transcripts, um, the transcripts are going to be what I believe the LLMs are going to hold on to or pull apart the different chunking and the different snippets. What I think it means for, say, videos such as this is the person that is doing the questions needs to be really specific about the questions. And the person giving the answer needs to be really clear with what their answers are so that it translates into the transcription. A lot of times now, I think with video interviews or podcasts, stuff like that, everything kind of goes, it flows very smoothly, right? Like it's kind of, it's very much a conversation and kind of a back and forth. Um, but I think if you want your videos to have impact within the LLMs, I think everyone's going to have to be a bit more mindful of what they're asking and what they're saying.
Yeah, so this is great. You just gave me a great idea. Let's try an experiment right now. So what would that look like? I think the question I'm trying to answer. What does a CEO need to know about using video to show up in LLM results? What specific answer would you give to that?
I would say the CEO needs to know what the answer is ahead of time, not answering it off the cuff, but having written answers that have been memorized to a degree, or reading off of a prompt or a prompter, I should say, with bullet items, something along that line. I think that's what CEOs are going to need.
So it sounds like you're pointing to a more scripted sort of format for Q&A and feeding these LLMs, as opposed to what I have been thinking as the real valuable stuff was the original thought leadership perspectives that people are putting in their own human language, their jargon, like all the insights that they might come up with, like zero-click search. Amanda came up with that one. So like she probably now owns that specific term because she came up with it. It's dated, it's archived, and so, like, is that not also part of this? Because the LLMs, when they summarize things, they kind of mush it all together into this like mediocre middle ground. And like, I thought the stuff that you wanted was the spiky stuff that's really like out here, specific, and hey, I'm the only one talking about this thing over here. Is that not also part of this?
So it is, but I think you might be kind of mixing a couple of concepts. So LLMs do not like to summarize information. They want to be told. So if you think of an LLM, I like to say LLMs are lazy. So the more clear, pointed, nicely tied in a box kind of content that you give them, the more likely they will be to repeat that back. So they're not looking at they're not looking at an entire blog post. I'll use a blog post as an example. They're not looking at an entire blog post and summarizing what that blog post is. that's asking too much of the LLM. It is looking at the content of the blog post and saying, oh, is there a nice chart in there? Is there a quotable segment fragment that is in there? So when you're talking about the video, it isn't going to summarize like, oh, this video between Dane and Jess was all about GEO. The LLMs aren't going to do that. They're going to look for, especially if they're looking through transcripts, they're going to look for what is it that you and I are talking about that is one of those spiky pieces that you were just talking about, that it can then take and pull out and repeat someplace later.
So when you think about using transcripts or video in general with a GEO strategy for a company, is there anyone that comes to mind as like the company that is doing this right? Like hands down, they've figured this out. They've rolled out a content strategy which checks all the boxes and includes video, because I'm not seeing that yet. I see pieces of that. Like I've been researching this. I was looking at HubSpot. I think they're doing a lot of things right, but I think they're not quite getting to the things that you're talking about. These really chunked out question and answer, like I could just think it's almost like a machine gun ammunition, like a bunch of just little bullets. Like who's doing that right? Has anyone come to your mind?
Nobody's coming to my mind. I think you're very right. I mean, everything is very early with AI and LLMs. Instead of having these long form, even 15 minutes, but like long form videos, I think that's good. And when you create something like that, that is really for the user. That is not for the LLM. For the LLM, I could foresee cutting videos down to 2-minute segments, 3-minute segments. Each one has its own transcript. And then as you're putting in the transcript, or as you're writing the description, right? So if we use YouTube, right? You have your title, you have your description, and then you can have your transcript. So then you can have your title be your question, you can have your description be the answer, and then have the transcript below. You don't want to create content to just feed the LLM, right? Everything still needs to be useful. And the content that you're talking about still needs to be content that your audience, your target user, is looking for. So going back to what you were saying just a moment ago, where somebody puts in, somebody enters a question, we'll use Google, somebody puts a question in, they get AI overviews at the beginning. If they have to choose, and I'm guessing here, I don't know for sure, but if they're choosing between a 25-minute video where your topic is a small slice versus a 3-minute video that directly answers their question, I'm pretty sure, based on what I know about LLMs, it's going to go with the more direct video.
Right.
So, and generally with content, I think there's going to be a resurgence, I'll call it, because I think it hasn't been that much of a priority lately, but a resurgence of market research or customer research. In order to appear within your LLMs, you have to really know what your customers or prospects or leads or whomever it is that's coming to your website or that you want to come to your website. You have to know at a really granular detail, what are they asking? So every sales call should be transcribed. Every support call should be transcribed. Every, email support ticket, all of that information needs to be funneled into probably another AI or LLM, funnel all of that in and say, okay, what are the questions? What are the repeating questions that come? And not even just like, what are the most important questions that are being asked, but what is the order in which they're being asked? So really understanding what is the mental model or the thought process that a user is going through to try and get from point A to point B. Because as we know, nobody goes onto an LLM, ask a single question, and walk away.
Right.
They ask one question, and then they get an answer, and then the LLM will be like, well, did you think about this? Or how about this? And then, it's this back and forth, right? I mean, I know in my own chat history, every chat is probably 20 exchanges as I kind of get down to the nitty gritty of whatever it is that I'm looking
Yeah.
at. So however you can know what that is and then build your video content around that, right? So maybe going back to, you have the 30-minute video that goes through all of the questions in that thought process. And then that's one video. But then you break it up into the smaller chunks.
Yeah.
And then have that up there. And then you create a web page that talks about it. And it's broken up into step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. Each one has its own little 3-minute segment. Like, that becomes really interesting, really
helpful, right? That's what we're talking
fodder
about.
for an LLM to come in and pick up. And it's also helpful for the user.
Yeah. So as we wrap up here, this is probably our last question, but I'm trying to see if we can get closer to like Sherlock Holmesing this. Like, what do we need to educate a CEO about the priority of how important this is, what the upside is, the cost of inaction, what level of investment are we talking? Like, because we got to like build this machine, right? The plumbing is customer research, plug that into a content plan where we're making this video. Like, how much money are we talking about? How long until we see results? Those big questions. How close are we to being able to answer those, do you think?
I don't know how close we are to answer that. I do know that real video, live video, not AI-driven video, I think is going to be a standout. As more people are creating all of these AI videos and, using avatars to say things, I think it's not going to get the job done. So having real people with a real videographer, you're probably happy to hear me say that, with a real videographer on something like a Riverside, and getting high quality video that, allows you to do the transcriptions and all of that, is going to be what makes it stand out. I think the real, I want to call it call to arms, is I feel like today, you need to be one step ahead of what everyone else is doing. The longer you wait to do video, or the longer you wait to create quality content, fill in all the things that I've been talking about, the longer you wait to do that, the more behind you're going to be. However, we also know that LLMs like recency. So it isn't about the way we used to do for SEO, where like you create a video, you post it, or a blog post, and you post it, and it gives you 2 years worth of SEO, and every month you're kind of adding on to it. With the LLMs, they want recency. So it isn't just a one and done, right? So the concept of having a series of videos, a weekly series, bi-weekly series, whatever, call it a podcast, call it whatever you want. But you need to keep feeding the engine for you to stay relevant. That's what I think it is the risk of not doing it is you're going to just be behind everybody else.
Yeah. Well, Jessica, thank you so much for sharing your insights. We're at time, but if they want to get in touch with you, how should they reach out?
Yeah, go to resonateonline.ai.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for sharing your insights.
All right. Thank you so much. It was really nice to meet you.
You too.